In the Persian Gulf, two United States Navy carrier strike groups are now converging on the same patch of water. Together, they represent over 140 combat aircraft, hundreds of Tomahawk cruise missiles, and a combined displacement of steel and firepower that no adversary in the region can match. The last time America moved this kind of weight into a single theater, it preceded a war. Before we dive in, comment where you are watching from and click subscribe. The question is not whether the hardware is there. The hardware is there. The question is what happens the moment someone decides to use it, and whether the diplomats sitting across tables in European capitals can outrun the carriers closing in on the Strait of Hormuz. The USS Abraham Lincoln is already in the Persian Gulf. It has been there long enough for its pilots to know the terrain, to have memorized the radar signatures, the elevation changes, the approach corridors into Iranian airspace. It is not a visiting ship, it is a stationed one. The USS Gerald R Ford is different. The Ford was in the Caribbean, supporting the operation that led to the capture of Nicolas Maduro. Its crew has not been resting between assignments. They flew live combat missions over Venezuelan airspace weeks ago. They dropped ordnance on real targets. They absorbed the lessons of that campaign in real time, and now they are steaming east at flank speed toward a theater that is, by any measurable standard, an order of magnitude more complicated than Venezuela. The New York Times confirmed the Ford's redeployment. The Pentagon did not deny it. And the President of the United States, when asked directly whether he wanted regime change in Iran, did not flinch. He said it would be the best thing that could happen. Days later, he issued a public warning that left no room for diplomatic interpretation. A deal must be made, he said, or what follows will be very traumatic. Within hours of that statement, the Pentagon confirmed the Ford's new orders. That sequence matters. The words came first. The steel followed immediately. That is not coincidence. That is signaling done deliberately and with precision. To understand what is moving and why, you have to understand what Iran has been doing while the diplomats were talking. Satellite imagery published by the New York Times showed that Iran moved with remarkable speed to repair the ballistic missile facilities damaged during Operation Midnight Hammer, the previous round of American and Israeli strikes that were designed to set back Iran's weapons program significantly. The craters were filled, the infrastructure was rebuilt, the centrifuges kept spinning. Military analysts now estimate Iran has produced up to 2,000 ballistic missiles. Many of them are capable of carrying nuclear warheads if Iran ever crosses that final threshold. The strikes were supposed to buy time. The time ran out faster than anyone publicly predicted. This is the operational reality that two carrier strike groups are now being positioned to address. So what does the war plan actually look like? The opening strike package would be built around the F-35C fighters aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. The F-35C is a fifth-generation stealth aircraft designed from the airframe out to penetrate layered air defense systems without triggering the radar signatures that would give Iranian operators enough warning to respond. It flies at Mach 1.6. It carries precision munitions, and it is specifically engineered to go places that every other tactical aircraft in the American inventory cannot go without getting killed on approach. The targets for the F-35s would be Iran's air defense network, radar installations, command nodes, the surface-to-air missile batteries that protect the underground nuclear facilities that survived, or only partially survived, the previous round of strikes. The logic is sequential. You do not send the F-18s in before the F-35s have torn the holes. You send the scalpel first, then you send the hammer. The F-18 Super Hornets aboard the USS Gerald R Ford are the hammer. They are not stealth aircraft. They do not need to be, not after the F-35s have degraded Iran's defensive envelope to the point where conventional fourth-generation fighters can operate with acceptable risk. The F-18s carry 500-pound bombs, anti-drone munitions, and the payload capacity for sustained strike operations. They are not designed for a single opening night. They are designed for the week after, the month after. The relentless, rotating pressure of a campaign that does not give the adversary time to repair, regroup, or reposition. Then there are the Tomahawks. Launched not from aircraft but from the destroyers and cruisers that form the escort screen around both carriers, Tomahawk cruise missiles fly low, navigate terrain autonomously, and strike targets hundreds of miles inland with precision that does not require a pilot to survive the threat environment. They are pre-programmed, pre-targeted, and can be fired in coordinated waves that overwhelm any single-point defense system Iran currently fields. They do not require good weather. They do not require overflight permission. They do not tire. Hundreds of them are already loaded. But the offensive firepower, as impressive as it is only part of the capability these two carrier groups bring to the fight. The other part is what keeps the carriers alive while the strikes are happening. The E-2D Advanced Hawkeye is an airborne early warning aircraft, a flying radar station that the Naval Air Systems Command describes as the world's most advanced airborne radar system. It sees everything in the battle space simultaneously. It coordinates the sequencing of strike packages, manages the deconfliction of aircraft operating across multiple corridors, and functions as the central nervous system of the entire operation. When an inbound threat is detected, the Hawkeye identifies it, classifies it, and hands targeting data to the aircraft best positioned to respond. And against Iran's most credible asymmetric threat, that aircraft is the EA-18G Growler. Iran has invested heavily in drone saturation tactics. The doctrine is straightforward. You cannot economically intercept a swarm of 60 drones and 30 fast boats simultaneously using conventional air defense systems. The math doesn't work. The missiles cost more than the drones. The reload time is longer than the attack duration. Swarms are designed to exhaust point defense systems by sheer volume, forcing defenders to choose which threats to intercept and which to absorb. The Growler is the answer to that problem. It is an electronic warfare variant of the F-18 airframe, built to blanket an entire formation of incoming threats with targeted jamming, simultaneously shutting down the guidance and communication systems of every drone in a swarm before a single one reaches its target. The Hawkeye detects. The Growler jams. The swarm loses cohesion. The attack fails. What Iran designed as its greatest asymmetric advantage becomes, when matched against the Hawkeye-Growler combination, a neutralized threat. Iran has spent years and significant national resources building a capability that the United States Navy has a specific operational answer for. That answer is now parked 200 miles off the Iranian coast. Two carrier groups also produce something that one carrier cannot: persistence. A single carrier strike group generates a significant strike capacity, but it has limits on how many sorties it can sustain over a 24-hour period before pilot fatigue, maintenance cycles, and ordnance resupply force a pause. Two carriers operating in coordination generate 33% more sorties per cycle. The math translates directly into operational pressure. There is no recovery window. No pause in which Iranian forces can reposition air defenses, repair damaged facilities, or move sensitive assets to secondary locations. The strikes come day and night, continuously, until the target set is exhausted or a political decision is made to stop. The Abraham Lincoln leads the initial shock campaign. The Gerald R Ford sustains it. The destroyers fire Tomahawks in coordinated waves timed to the aircraft packages. The Growlers suppress Iran's electronic defenses in advance of every strike. The Hawkeyes manage the entire sequence from above. On paper, it is a nearly overwhelming application of combined arms air power against a military that, for all its regional influence and operational ferocity, cannot field a fifth-generation fighter, cannot project carrier aviation, and cannot match the electronic warfare density the United States Navy brings to this particular fight. Iran knows this. It has always known this. And it has spent 30 years building a response doctrine that does not attempt to match American conventional capability. It is designed to punish America for using that capability. Iran's foreign minister stated it plainly in a recent interview. If the United States attacks, Iran does not have the ability to strike American territory directly. Therefore, it will strike American bases in the region. And American bases are spread all across the region: Qatar, Jordan, Bahrain, Israel. every one of those facilities is within range of Iranian ballistic missiles. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has made this threat not as rhetoric but as operational doctrine, repeated consistently and with specific geographic detail. 2,000 ballistic missiles, proxy forces activated simultaneously in Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen, and Syria. Multiple fronts opening at the same moment that strikes on Iranian territory are still ongoing. This is the Iranian theory of cost imposition. You cannot defeat America conventionally, but you can make the cost of fighting high enough politically, economically, and in casualties that the American public loses the will to sustain the campaign before Iran loses the will to survive it. The Strait of Hormuz sits at the center of the economic dimension of this calculation. At its narrowest point, it is 33 kilometers wide. Through that channel passes roughly 20% of the world's traded oil. If Iran mines it, interdicts it, or simply threatens it credibly enough to halt commercial traffic, oil prices spike toward levels that trigger recession conditions across Europe and Asia simultaneously. China, the world's largest importer of Gulf oil, faces an energy crisis it cannot quietly absorb. Japan and South Korea, almost entirely dependent on Gulf supply chains, begin emergency rationing conversations within days. Global inflation, already fragile in multiple major economies, reignites at a velocity that central banks cannot easily contain. Russia watches all of this and does not reach for the telephone to call Washington. It calculates opportunity. This is not a regional conflict with regional consequences. This is a trigger wired into the global economic architecture. American military planners understand the Iranian doctrine. The presence of two carrier groups is not simply about offensive capacity, it is also about defensive density and attritional logic. Every Iranian drone diverted toward a U.S. carrier is a drone not hitting a base in Qatar. Every ballistic missile fired at an Israeli city is a missile Iran fires once and cannot quickly replace. The American theory of the campaign is that Iran cannot simultaneously sustain proxy operations across four fronts: absorb continuous carrier-based strikes on its own territory, manage electronic warfare suppression across its entire air defense network, and preserve the command and control infrastructure necessary to coordinate all of it. The resources split. The command structure degrades. The asymmetric strategy that was supposed to be Iran's ultimate deterrent exhausts itself against a sustained two-carrier campaign before Iran can impose enough political cost on Washington to force a halt. That is the theory. Whether the theory survives contact with reality is a different question, and it is the question that no one in any government has a confident answer to. There is a deeper problem underneath all of it. Destroying Iran's nuclear facilities does not destroy Iran's intention to build nuclear weapons. It sets back the timeline. By how much is genuinely contested? 2 years, 5 years, potentially a decade if the strikes are comprehensive and fortunate. But a post-strike Iran, humiliated before its own population and facing international sympathy flowing toward Tehran rather than Washington, would have every political incentive to reconstitute its program faster, more covertly, and with a determination that would make the pre-strike program look cautious. You can crater a centrifuge hall. You cannot crater a decision. This is the unresolved question at the center of everything. What comes after the bombs? Diplomacy has not formally collapsed. Talks are scheduled. American envoys are at the table. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has acknowledged that reaching a deal would be very hard. Iran's deputy foreign minister told the BBC that if America proves it sincerely wants an agreement, a road to one exists. Whether that is a genuine opening or the sound of a government doing the arithmetic on what two carrier strike groups mean for its institutional survival is a question only the next several weeks will answer. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates want Iran's nuclear program eliminated. They cannot say so at Arab League podiums. So they say nothing publicly and provide access and intelligence quietly, walking the tightrope they have walked for years. Iraq is fracturing at the governmental level, ministers from opposing factions unable to agree on which catastrophe to fear more, the American ally demanding loyalty or the Iranian patron demanding compliance. The USS Abraham Lincoln is in the Persian Gulf. Its flight deck is pointed at Iran. The USS Gerald R is closing the distance. Its crew combat season from operations in Venezuela just weeks ago. Its pilots briefed on targets that may or may not still exist by the time the orders come. The Tomahawks are loaded. The Growlers are configured. The Hawkeyes are ready to begin orchestrating from above. And somewhere in European capitals, diplomats are sitting across tables from each other, exchanging proposals, measuring distances between positions, trying to determine whether the gap can be closed before the carriers arrive on final station. The talks are happening. The carriers are moving. Both things are true simultaneously. The carriers do not wait for the talks to finish. The talks do not stop because the carriers are moving. They run in parallel, on separate tracks, toward a single intersection point that is now close enough that everyone in the region can feel it approaching. One of them will define what comes next. History rarely announces which one that will be until after the moment has already passed.